The year was 2050. Earth had always been a peaceful planet. Humans had their problems: wars, poverty, hunger, but nothing prepared them for the arrival of the Empire. It happened one calm evening, with no warning, no sign. The sky above Earth suddenly filled with enormous ships. They were not of human design. These were warships, alien warships, hundreds of them. They hovered in the sky like giants, their black, metallic surfaces reflecting the light of the setting sun. On Earth, people looked up in shock and awe. News channels buzzed with confusion, showing live footage of the ships slowly descending over major cities. Nobody knew who they were or what they wanted. Panic spread fast. The Empire's ships sent a message. It was clear and direct, transmitted in every language known to humanity. We are the Empire. You have 24 hours to submit to our rule. If you refuse, we will destroy your planet. Humanity was stunned. No one had ever expected this. Some people thought it was a joke. Others feared the worst. What were these aliens? How could they speak Earth's languages? Who were they to demand such power over the human race? The world leaders immediately went into crisis mode. The United Nations, the European Union, the leaders of China, Russia, and the Americas gathered in secret meetings. They had no idea how to respond. The Empire's ships were too large, their technology far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. Meanwhile, people took to the streets. Some were terrified, some angry, but many stood silent. The message from the aliens was clear. Either bend the knee or face destruction. The countdown had begun. In a quiet room deep beneath the Pentagon, the best minds on Earth gathered. The leaders looked at each other in disbelief. What were they supposed to do? Earth was unprepared for an invasion of this magnitude. Humanity's military forces, even their most advanced technology, seemed like nothing against the power of the Empire's warships. What if they really destroy us? The president asked, his voice quiet, yet filled with fear. What if we can't stop them? The scientists and generals had no answer. It was true. The aliens had shown no sign of weakness. They had not fired a single shot. Yet they were already controlling the entire world's attention. The silence of their presence was more terrifying than any weapon could be. The streets of Earth were in chaos. Some people began to call for immediate surrender, believing that the only way to survive was to accept the Empire's rule. Others, however, refused to give in. They shouted, "We fight. We are humans. We will never bow down to invaders." Back in the meeting rooms, Earth's leaders were divided. Some argued for negotiation, others for a desperate defense. No one knew for sure what the Empire wanted. Was it conquest? Was it simply to dominate? Or was there something more? Then, as the final hours of the deadline ticked away, a new message from the Empire appeared on every screen across the globe. It wasn't a threat this time. It was something worse. "We grow impatient," the message said. "This is your final warning. Submit or face the consequences." The world went silent. It was clear now. The Empire wasn't asking. They were demanding. And humanity had no choice but to respond. As the clock ticked down to the final minutes, the tension in the air was unbearable. The leaders of Earth were trying desperately to come up with a plan, but no one had a real solution. Could they stop an alien empire? Could Earth even survive this? With only minutes left, humanity stood on the brink of an impossible decision. Surrender? Fight? No one knew. The clock was ticking. In the streets, people whispered to each other. Would Earth bow to the Empire, or would they find a way to resist? Hope was beginning to fade, but then a whisper started to spread among the people, a spark of hope that grew larger by the second. Somewhere deep inside Earth's military headquarters, something was happening. A top-secret team, a group of scientists and engineers had been working on a weapon that could change the course of history, a warship designed in secret, built to fight against the invaders. The warship was ready, but would it be enough to defend Earth? As the final hour approached, one thing became clear: humanity would never go down without a fight. The tension in the air was unbearable. As the clock ticked down to the final moments, Earth's fate seemed sealed. People held their breath, waiting for the inevitable decision. Would humanity surrender to the Empire, or would they stand up and fight? But deep within Earth's defense forces, there was a flicker of hope, an unexpected answer to the looming threat. The warship had been built in secrecy, a project that had begun long before the Empire's ships appeared on Earth's horizon. A team of brilliant engineers, scientists, and military strategists had been working day and night to create a weapon powerful enough to challenge the alien forces. But it wasn't just a weapon. It was humanity's last chance. The warship was designed not only to defend Earth, but to show the Empire that humans were not weak. The warship's designers believed that if they could unleash it, the tide of the conflict might change. As the final minutes of the deadline passed, the people of Earth didn't know it yet, but something incredible was about to unfold. The Empire's ships were still hovering above major cities, casting dark shadows over the planet. The Empire was waiting, its patience running thin. They had given Earth more than enough time to comply, and they were ready to make their move. But, within the deepest parts of Earth's defense network, the warship was ready. It was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. The engineers had studied the Empire's ships, their weaknesses, and their strengths, and had designed a ship that could match them in both power and speed. The warship wasn't just built for destruction, it was a symbol of Earth's will to survive, to resist. And now, the time had come. The team of engineers and military leaders who had worked tirelessly on the project gathered in the command room, watching the warship as it powered up for the first time. Its engines hummed with energy, and the bright blue lights along its hull lit up, signifying that it was ready for action. "Is it enough?" one of the engineers asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. He had worked on the project from the very beginning, but even he couldn't be sure if it could stand up to the Empire's overwhelming power. "We don't have a choice," replied the general in charge of Earth's defense. "We either fight or we lose everything." With a silent nod, the team watched as the warship took off, its engines roaring to life as it soared into the atmosphere. The ship's sleek, angular design cut through the sky, and for the first time in days, people on Earth looked up with a glimmer of hope in their eyes. The warship was on its way to confront the Empire, but as it ascended into space, there was something the humans hadn't anticipated. The Empire had seen the warship launch. The alien forces had known that Earth was working on something. But now they saw it for themselves, and they were ready to respond. Above Earth, the Empire's flagship remained in orbit, waiting for the human warship to approach. The alien commanders knew that this was the moment they had been waiting for. If this warship was as powerful as Earth's leaders hoped, they would have to make their move quickly. The Empire had no intention of letting a small planet like Earth stand in their way. The warship continued its journey into space, but something was different now. The Empire's ships were beginning to move. A wave of fear swept through the human command center. The warship was heading straight for the Empire's fleet, and no one knew what would happen next. Would the warship be enough to hold off the Empire's forces, or would it be destroyed before it even had a chance to fight? As the warship approached the enemy ships, it became clear that Earth was in a race against time. The Empire's ships loomed larger and larger as the distance closed, and a sense of dread settled over everyone. This was it. There was no turning back now. In the command center, the leader of Earth's forces gave a quiet order. "Activate the warship's defenses." The hum of energy built within the warship as it prepared for its first encounter with the Empire. Its weapon systems came online, and the crew braced for the worst. They had no idea what the Empire's forces could throw at them, but they had to be ready. The warship entered the atmosphere of space, and the first shots were fired. The bright streaks of energy flew past the warship, narrowly missing. The Empire's ships had opened fire. The warship's shields flared brightly as it absorbed the first volley. The humans had hoped the warship would be enough, but now they realized the battle was far from over. The Empire was vast, its ships powerful, and Earth's defenses were still young. But there was something about the way the warship responded. It wasn't just a machine. It was a statement. The warship fought back, firing its own weapons with precision and power. It wasn't the strongest ship in the galaxy, but it was fueled by something the Empire couldn't understand: humanity's determination to survive. As the warship fired its first shot, the Earth's people watched in awe. Could this be the turning point? Was humanity truly capable of standing up to the Empire? The answer wasn't clear yet, but the battle for Earth had begun. As the warship soared deeper into space, the tension in the command center grew unbearable. Every eye was fixed on the screens, watching as the first battle of humanity's struggle for survival unfolded. Earth's forces had taken their first step, but they had no idea what lay ahead. The warship, though powerful, was still small compared to the Empire's vast fleet, and the aliens were not going to let Earth go unchallenged. Inside the warship's control room, the crew worked feverishly, every motion precise and deliberate. The hum of the engines resonated throughout the ship, and the faint glow of the weapon systems flickered to life. The captain, a seasoned officer who had seen countless battles in his time, stood before the massive window, gazing out into the dark expanse of space. His face was calm, but his mind raced. This was their chance to prove that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Captain," the communications officer called out, her voice tight with urgency. "We're approaching the Empire's fleet. They've deployed multiple ships to intercept us. Their forces are much larger than we anticipated." The captain didn't flinch. "We knew this day would come," he replied. "Tell the crew to prepare for everything." Outside the ship, the Empire's fleet began to move. It was an overwhelming sight. Thousands of sleek, dark ships, each one more powerful than anything Earth had ever seen. The Empire's ships gleamed like stars in the distance, their enormous size dwarfing the warship as it neared their formation. The humans, though outnumbered, had one thing the Empire didn't. They had the will to fight, to defend their home. As the warship closed the gap, the captain issued a command that resonated through the ship. "Launch the decoys." Within moments, small drones shot out from the warship, each one designed to mislead the Empire's targeting systems. The Empire's ships fired, but the decoys provided enough of a distraction, giving the warship a chance to maneuver through the fleet. The humans had learned well from their enemies, and their ingenuity gave them an edge. However, the Empire was quick to adapt. Their flagship, a colossal vessel that dwarfed the warship, began to move toward the human ship with alarming speed. The Empire's fleet was not just vast, it was organized, efficient. They were not going to let a single ship from Earth slip past them. "Brace for impact," the captain ordered. For a brief moment, the entire ship shook as the warship dodged a powerful blast from one of the Empire's smaller vessels. The shield generator whined under the strain, but it held. The crew, now, more determined than ever, worked together to keep the warship on course. "We can't outrun them forever," the pilot said, his voice steady but laced with concern. "We need to find a way to fight back. We need a plan." The captain nodded. "I've got an idea." Inside the warship's weapons bay, the engineers scrambled to prepare an experimental weapon, one that had been designed to disrupt the Empire's shields. It was a risky move, one that could either turn the tide of the battle or end in disaster. The weapon wasn't fully tested, and no one knew for sure if it would work. But at that moment, they had no choice. The captain gave the order. "Fire the disruptor." The weapon roared to life, sending a beam of concentrated energy toward the nearest Empire ship. The beam hit its target, and for a split second, nothing happened. Then, the Empire's shields flickered and sputtered. The ship's outer layer of protection began to crack. The Empire's ship, which had been invulnerable just moments before, was now vulnerable to attack. The crew erupted in excitement. The weapon had worked. "Now's our chance," the captain shouted. "Prepare the main cannons. Target the flagship." The warship angled toward the massive Empire flagship, the crew working together in perfect harmony. The Empire ships, now realizing their shields had been compromised, tried to retaliate, but they were disorganized. The Empire had never encountered a threat like this before. The warship's main cannons powered up, and with one commanding word the captain ordered the fire. The energy blast shot out, hitting the Empire's flagship dead center. The force of the blast sent shockwaves through the fleet, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The Empire's ship staggered back, its hull smoking and cracked, but the battle was far from over. The Empire's flagship, though damaged, was not destroyed. It retaliated with a barrage of energy blasts, but the warship was already on the move. The crew, working with precision, maneuvered the ship with skill and speed, avoiding the Empire's retaliatory fire. In the control room, the captain looked out into the distance, his expression unwavering. He knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would not give up easily, and this victory, though significant, was only the first step in the war. Earth was in for a long and difficult fight, but as the warship continued its journey through the vast expanse of space, one thing was certain: humanity would never give up. They would continue to fight no matter the odds, no matter the cost. The Empire had made a terrible mistake by underestimating the spirit of Earth. And now, the warship was proof of that spirit. This was only the beginning. The battle for Earth had just begun, and the warship was humanity's beacon of hope. The battle raged on, and Earth's warship continued to defy all expectations. As the dust of the first skirmish settled, the Empire's fleet regrouped, determined to end this encounter swiftly. But Earth was not going to back down. The warship had proven its worth, but the true test was just beginning. Could it stand against the full might of the Empire, or would humanity's hope flicker out in the vast emptiness of space? Inside the warship, the crew was exhausted but resolute. The initial victory had given them a sense of purpose, but they knew the Empire would come at them with everything they had. The warship's systems hummed as engineers and crew members worked tirelessly to keep it operational. It had taken a pounding in the previous battle, but it was still intact, still ready to fight. In the command center, the captain stared at the monitor, watching as the Empire's fleet reorganized. The massive flagship was still there, looming in the distance, its presence almost mocking the warship's small size in comparison. But the captain's eyes gleamed with determination. They had faced worse odds before. Earth's defenders were not about to let this alien force wipe them out without a fight. "Report," the captain said, his voice calm but firm. The communications officer turned to him. "The Empire has split its forces. Some ships are moving into position around our warship, while others are heading toward Earth's major cities. They're trying to divide our attention." The captain nodded, processing the information. "They're trying to force us into a corner," he murmured. "They want us to make a mistake. We won't give them that satisfaction." He turned to the pilot, who had been silently navigating the warship through space. "Keep us mobile. We need to outmaneuver them. Let's show them that we're not just a small ship, we're Earth's heart, and we won't be beaten." The pilot gripped the controls, nodding without a word. The warship surged forward, dodging the Empire's attacks as they came. Each movement was calculated, precise. Every time the Empire's ships fired, the warship darted to the side, narrowly avoiding their blasts. The atmosphere in the control room was tense, but the crew's focus was absolute. They knew what was at stake. They knew the Empire had the firepower to wipe out everything they loved, but they also knew that this warship represented something far greater than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's will to survive. As the warship raced through space, it became clear that Earth's forces were not as weak as the Empire had believed. The warship wasn't just evading fire, it was striking back. The cannons fired with deadly accuracy, taking out smaller Empire ships that ventured too close. Each hit was a small victory, a testament to humanity's refusal to give in. But the Empire was not without its own strengths. Its ships began to move in tighter formations, coordinating their attacks. The warship's shields flickered under the pressure, and the crew felt the strain. The Empire's forces were vast, and they were relentless. In the midst of the battle, something unexpected happened. The warship's sensors detected a new energy source, one that hadn't been seen before. It was coming from a distant part of the Empire's fleet. The captain ordered the crew to investigate. "Prepare the scanners," he commanded. "We need to know what we're dealing with." As the scanners analyzed the new energy signature, A chilling realization spread through the crew. The Empire had deployed something they had never encountered before, a weapon capable of disrupting the very fabric of space itself. It was not just a weapon of destruction, it was a weapon designed to disable everything in its path. If it hit, the warship would be powerless. "We need to act fast," the captain said, his voice grim. "If that weapon is fully operational, we won't survive. We have to destroy it before it can be used." The warship surged forward once more, heading directly toward the source of the threat. The crew worked in unison, preparing the ship's final assault. This would be their chance, their only chance to stop the Empire's devastating weapon. As the warship approached the source of the energy signature, the tension grew. The Empire's ships, sensing the danger, moved to intercept, but the humans were determined. The warship's engines roared, pushing it faster and faster, and the crew braced for the final confrontation. In the command center, the captain stood tall, watching the oncoming fleet. "We've come this far," he said, his voice steady. "We're not turning back now." With a sharp command, the warship fired its primary weapon. The blast collided with the Empire's weapon, and for a moment everything seemed to freeze. The energy waves from the two forces clashed in the void of space, sending shockwaves throughout the battlefield. The captain watched, hoping against hope that the warship's blast would be enough to stop the Empire's weapon. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then the Empire's weapon began to crack, its energy source faltering. The warship's attack had struck true. "Direct hit," the communications officer shouted. "The weapon's down. We've neutralized their threat." A cheer erupted through the crew, but there was no time for celebration. The battle was far from over, and the Empire would not give up easily. The warship's victory was a turning point, but it was just one small step in the long journey ahead. The Empire's forces were regrouping, and Earth's fight for survival was far from over. As the warship pulled back, the crew looked out into the vastness of space. They had dealt a significant blow to the Empire, but there was no guarantee of victory yet. What they did know, however, was that they had proven something to the aliens. They had shown the Empire that humanity was not to be underestimated. And as long as Earth's warship still flew, humanity's fight was far from over. The battle for Earth had entered a new phase, and the warship was ready for whatever came next. The warship had just achieved a victory, but the cost was becoming clear. The Empire's forces had been pushed back, but they weren't giving up. As Earth's warship continued its journey through space, the looming shadow of the Empire's fleet was still there, waiting. The crew had no illusions about what was to come. They knew they had only bought themselves a brief respite. Inside the warship, the atmosphere was tense. The captain paced in front of the command center, his mind racing with calculations and strategies. The warship had been damaged in the previous battle, and though it was still operational, it was not invincible. The crew was exhausted, but their determination burned brighter than ever. They had held their ground, but they couldn't afford to be complacent. "Captain, we're picking up multiple signals," the communications officer reported, her voice calm but urgent. "The Empire is reassembling. They've brought in reinforcements." The captain stopped in his tracks. "How many ships?" "Thousands at least. They've concentrated their forces. The entire fleet is headed in our direction." A sense of dread swept through the room. The Empire's response was overwhelming. Earth's forces had dealt them a blow, but now they were going to pay the price. The warship, as powerful as it was, couldn't face the full might of the Empire alone. "Prepare the warship," the captain ordered. "We'll need to outmaneuver them. Get the shields back online and power up all systems. This is going to be the fight of our lives." The crew quickly moved into action. The engineers worked tirelessly to repair the warship's systems while the pilots adjusted their navigation strategies. They had no choice but to face the Empire head-on. There was no room for retreat. Earth's survival was on the line. As the warship moved deeper into space, the Empire's fleet grew larger on the horizon. The once distant ships were now closing in fast, their imposing silhouettes casting an eerie shadow over the warship. The crew braced themselves for what was sure to be the most intense part of the battle yet. "Captain," the pilot called out, his voice steady but filled with tension. "We've got a clear path through their formation, but it's narrow. We'll have to move fast." The captain nodded. "Make it happen. We can't let them box us in. With a sharp turn, the warship darted forward, its engines roaring as it sliced through the vastness of space. The Empire's ships, though massive and numerous, had not anticipated the speed and agility of Earth's warship. It was like a dart moving through a storm of giants. But the Empire wasn't unprepared. They opened fire as the warship zoomed, past sending waves of energy blasts toward it. The warship's shields flared brightly as they absorbed the first wave of blasts. The crew felt the ship shudder under the pressure, but they held firm. They had trained for moments like this. The captain stood at the front of the command center, his eyes fixed on the screen, tracking the movements of the Empire's ships. He was a man of action, and this was his moment. "Deploy the countermeasures," he barked. With that, small drones shot out from the warship, creating a cloud of confusion among the Empire's ships. The drones emitted powerful electromagnetic pulses that scrambled the targeting systems of the alien fleet. For a moment, the Empire's ships faltered, unable to lock onto the warship with precision. But the Empire adapted quickly. Their ships began to close the gap, their formations tighter than ever. The warship, now in the thick of the Empire's forces, had nowhere to hide. The captain's eyes narrowed. "All or nothing," he muttered under his breath. The warship's engines roared again as it surged forward, pushing through the Empire's defenses. With the fleet in full pursuit, the crew moved with relentless focus, guiding the warship through narrow gaps between the enemy ships. They couldn't afford to make a mistake, and the margin for error was razor thin. The warship's weapons powered up, and the crew unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. Each shot struck its target with deadly precision, taking down one of the Empire's ships after another. But even as they celebrated each success, the Empire was relentless, bringing in reinforcements faster than the warship could destroy them. "We need something more," the captain said, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to take out their flagship. If we don't, this fight is pointless." The flagship was the heart of the Empire's fleet, a massive ship that coordinated the movements of every vessel in the Armada. If they could disable it, they could break the Empire's control over their forces. But the flagship was heavily shielded, and getting close enough to strike was no easy task. The captain turned to the strategist at his side. "Do we have a plan?" The strategist nodded. "We do, but it's risky. We'll need to get past their entire fleet to launch a direct assault on the flagship's core." "Do it," the captain said without hesitation. "If we don't, we'll never have another chance." The warship began its perilous journey toward the heart of the Empire's fleet, moving through a labyrinth of ships and energy blasts. The crew fought with everything they had, their determination unwavering. The captain's voice, calm and commanding, guided them every step of the way. As they neared the flagship, the Empire's ships closed in, launching one last desperate attempt to stop them. The warship's shields flared brightly as the blasts rained down, but the crew held steady, focused on their target. "Now!" the captain shouted. The warship's main cannons charged, and in a flash of light, they fired directly at the flagship's core. The impact was overwhelming, sending shockwaves through the fleet. The flagship's shields flickered, then shattered, exposing its vulnerable heart. The captain stood, watching the result of their gamble. The flagship was faltering, its energy systems failing. The battle was far from over, but this was a victory they could build on. "We've done it," the strategist said, a smile breaking across their face. But the captain's expression remained serious. "It's not over yet. Keep fighting. This is just the beginning." The warship turned away from the burning flagship, ready for whatever came next. The Empire had underestimated Earth, and now they were paying the price. But as the warship sped toward the unknown, the crew knew that the fight for Earth's future was far from finished. The warship drifted through the wreckage of the Empire's once pristine fleet. The flagship, now a shadow of its former self, was slowly losing its strength, its massive frame floating in the emptiness of space. Yet, even in its defeat, the Empire was far from done. The fleet had retreated temporarily, but it was regrouping, reorganizing. The humans had delivered a powerful blow, but the true battle was still ahead. Inside the warship, the crew moved. With a quiet intensity, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and determination. They had won one fight, but they all knew that the real war was far from over. The Empire was not just going to give up. It was regrouping, recalibrating, and planning its next move. The warship was battered, and the crew was running low on supplies and morale. But there was something stronger than fatigue and fear. The knowledge that they were Earth's last hope. The captain stood in front of the command center, his gaze fixed on the screen, where a new set of Empire ships had appeared in the distance. It wasn't just a small battalion. They were bringing everything they had left. The warship's sensors could detect the sheer size of the fleet, the overwhelming numbers, and the powerful weapons that came with it. "We've been pushing them back for days, Captain," the strategist said, looking up from the monitors. "But they're coming with everything now. If we don't act fast, we won't be able to stop them." The captain clenched his fists. "And we won't be able to save Earth either." He turned to the rest of the crew who were working around the room. "We need to make this count," he said, his voice calm but heavy with the weight of their responsibility. "We have one chance. We take the fight to them before they regroup completely. We need to strike at the heart of their fleet and force them to surrender." The communication officer looked up, her eyes wide. "But the Empire's new ships are heavily armed. It's a suicide mission, Captain." The captain didn't flinch. "Every moment we hesitate, the Empire grows stronger. We don't have the luxury of hesitation anymore." The plan was risky, but it was the only option left. They would infiltrate the Empire's reformed fleet, using the warship's stealth technology, which, although untested in a battle of this scale, could allow them to slip through the enemy's defenses and make a decisive strike. The goal was clear: reach the Empire's command ship, the true center of their control, and disable its systems before it could launch a counterattack. The crew worked tirelessly, preparing for what was sure to be their most dangerous mission yet. The warship was a marvel of human ingenuity, but even its advanced technology could only do so much against an overwhelming force. As the captain gave the final order, there was no time for doubt. It was now or never. "Engage stealth mode," the captain commanded. The warship shimmered as its hull absorbed the surrounding light, cloaking itself from the Empire's sensors. For a brief moment, the crew could breathe. They were invisible. The only problem was that the warship's cloaking technology had limitations. Its energy consumption was immense, and it could only remain hidden for a short period of time before the systems overheated. "Prepare for a quick strike," the captain said. "Once we're in, we hit hard and fast, no mistakes." The warship moved through the shadows of space, weaving between the colossal ships of the Empire. The silence was almost suffocating, broken only by the hum of the warship's cloaked engines and the soft whispers of the crew as they worked in unison. Every sensor on the warship was locked onto their target, the heart of the Empire's fleet. As they neared the command ship, the crew held their breath. They could see the immense structure before them. Its sheer size dwarfed their own ship, yet they had no choice but to get close enough to strike. The Empire's command ship was the central hub of their entire operation. If they could disable its control systems, the Empire's fleet would be lost without leadership. "Now," the captain said, his voice cutting through the tension, "we go in." With a sudden surge of energy, the warship shot forward, uncloaking, as it tore through the enemy's defenses. The crew had moments to launch the final assault before the Empire could react. The warship's main cannons fired with unrelenting force, striking the command ship's outer hull. But they didn't stop there. "We need to breach the core systems," the captain shouted. "Focus fire on their control center." The warship's advanced weapons fired again, this time targeting the heart of the command ship. The crew worked together, their minds focused entirely on their mission. The sensors flashed red as the command ship's defenses began to fail. The Empire's ship was reeling, unable to adapt to the rapid-fire strikes from the warship. But just as they were about to make their final move, a deep voice crackled over the communication system. "This is the Empire," the voice said coldly. "You think you can destroy us? We are the pinnacle of civilization. You will fail. You will fall, and your planet will burn." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Not today." With that, The warship unleashed its final weapon, a direct energy pulse aimed directly at the Empire's core. The blast was powerful enough to destabilize the control center and send a massive shockwave throughout the Empire's fleet. The flagship system shut down, leaving the remaining ships drifting aimlessly in space, leaderless and vulnerable. The crew watched in silence as the command ship, the symbol of the Empire's power, collapsed before their eyes. For the first time they could see the full scope of their victory. The battle had been hard fought, but this was the turning point. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was weakening. The captain stood tall, his voice steady as he addressed his crew. "We've won the battle, but there's still work to do. Earth is not safe yet, but we've shown the Empire that we will not be broken. We are human, and we will always fight." The crew exchanged glances, their faces filled with a quiet pride. The warship's mission had been a success. The Empire had underestimated humanity. They had thought Earth was just another insignificant planet, a small piece of a vast galaxy. But they had learned the hard way that humanity was capable of far more than anyone had imagined. The warship turned away from the wreckage of the Empire's fleet, its engines humming with purpose. There was still a long road ahead, but Earth had proven that no force, no matter how great, could crush its spirit. The fight was far from over, but one thing was certain: humanity would never stop fighting. And for the first time in a long time, the crew of the warship felt something they hadn't felt in a while: hope.